Thank you for joining For Our Special Kids, where we openly and honestly discuss the magic and the mess of raising a child with special needs. We are thrilled to have you here and hope this time provides you with some wonder and wisdom. I'm your host, Jennifer Lansing. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I reached out to the author of Out of My Mind and Out of My Heart, Sharon Draper, for an interview, and I am so honored that she said yes. As I state in the early part of this interview with her, whether or not she took that interview with me, I just wanted her to know how much of an impact her stories about Melody have had on me as a mom, as an advocate for Teal, and also as an advocate for other families and children in any sort of discriminating scenario. So I was so thrilled when she said yes. When I asked Sharon what was important for people to know about her, I love her answer. This is what she said. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. I've got 4 kids. I taught English language arts for 30 years. Really, the highlights are that I was a teacher and then I became a writer. And I became a writer because I was a teacher, because one of my students said, write something. So I did. Well, we are all so happy that she did. Sharon has written tons of books. For a list of titles, go to her website at sharondraper.com. She's received numerous awards, speaks internationally, and inspires school kids and their families all around the world. In the interview, you will hear Sharon's dog. She's in the room with her, and you hear some collar noises and movement every now and then, but I don't think it's much of a bother. We jump right into my conversation with her, which was easy and fun. I certainly hope you pick up the Out of My Mind series after this interview. And as always, I hope you enjoy and let me know what you think. When I read your book, I can't even, I sincerely wrote that email to you that was like, even if you don't take this interview, like, I just need you to know that your words and your stories are totally changing people's worlds. And I know you know that, but sometimes it's nice to just hear it again.
Yeah, it does help. It does help.
So the challenge your student issued led you to winning first prize in a literary contest for the publication of your short story, One Small Torch. Let's talk about your transition from poems, essays, and short stories to writing books.
You know, I had no idea what I was doing when I started. And I sent my first book to 25 publishing companies. I got 24 rejection letters. Wow. And the last one was Simon & Schuster, and they said yes. That was my first book, and that was, almost 30 years ago. You know, I've been writing ever since, and Out of My Mind and Out of My Heart are the 2 newest ones. Mm-hmm. And if I'm actually working on the 3rd one. It's called Out of My Something. And it's got a plot, but it's like a baby in the womb. It's not yet developed.
I would imagine Melody has to kind of speak to you.
Yeah. And then, you know, I've had so much response from students and teachers that I have to make sure that the melody that speaks back to them is true and powerful, and that she does something different or learns something different or affects the world somehow differently, because she has literally changed the world, this little girl.
She has. I reached out to our listeners and asked them for a couple of questions. Helen, who read the book when she was 12, is now 14, and she encouraged her mom to read it. So Helen wants to know, where did the inspiration for the story come from?
Well, like I said, I've written 30 books, and it's almost an impossible question to answer. Where did the inspiration come from? Because each book is different. Each book is from a different point of view. It's hard to say. And the answer I usually give to young people is, think about Thanksgiving dinner. Think about the person who cooks the best meal at Thanksgiving, your grandma's turkey or dressing or whatever, you know, and nobody ever asks that person, so what inspired you to put that in the dressing. No, it's like, that's what I do. I make dressing, and everybody says, "Ooh, you got the best dressing in the world. We can't wait because every year you bring that dressing." And this is, what do you put in it? I just make my dressing. So writing to me is a gift. And there are things that I cannot do. I cannot cook, I cannot swim, but I can write. That is my gift. And so it's real hard to answer the question, how do you do that? I ask the same question to people who can swim. How do you get in the water and not die? So so it's a gift. And that's what I use for the answer. It really is.
So was Melody based off of anyone? Did you have experiences with children with extreme CP? Anything like
Well,
that?
I've had lots of experiences with lots of children as a teacher. So no and yes. She is everybody, she is anybody.
Mm.
It's there's no specificity to it. But I took all of everything that I knew and put it into the one character.
So you don't have personal experience with a child like this?
I do. I mean, we have family members with various bits and pieces, but Melody is different.
Yeah, she is different. Teal is what we call verbal-ish.
Uh-huh.
She can say words but nobody really understands them unless it's really in context or unless she's talking to me or her dad.
Because you know what she's saying.
Yeah, and I know her intonations now. And I mean, not every word. Like even just today, I was like, Teal, I am so sorry. I have no idea what you are even attempting to tell me. Yeah. And she kind of just looks at me like, all right, yeah. Well, I'm doing my best, Mom. Yeah. I think the hardest part for me with a child that is stuck inside of herself sometimes, or a lot of the times, is that people talk down to her.
Yes.
And you clearly and out of my mind just beautifully captured the struggle. And, there were times when I was reading it and aching for my daughter, aching for her because you made it so very real and tangible for a parent. But then you also, and I said this in the email that I wrote you completely changed the way I interacted with our school system. Now, we are blessed here in Lake Tahoe with a very, very good school system, and they get things for Teal. She needed a wheelchair. It was in like 10 days. Boom. She had a wheelchair. Yes. She needed a speaking device. Boom. They had a sample one for her. Yes, it's amazing. And they are amazing. Like we just did an IEP yesterday or a review. And I said to everyone, I started crying and I said, it just always shocks me how much you care so deeply about her. So the schooling here is wonderful. However, when you write about her going into the same classroom every single year, it completely opened my eyes to, hold on, that's not okay.
Yeah, H5. We put them all in H5. Yep.
It's not okay.
Like I said, I've taught for many years. So,
30 years, yeah.
Yeah, but our school, well, one of the schools I taught at had a room like H5. And it was called something different and wasn't the same, but lots of schools have an H5 room where they just kind of dump them all and it doesn't matter. If you've got some kind of special need, you go to H5, regardless of your intelligence or your abilities or you're different, you go to H5. And Melody looked like she needed to be there, but clearly in her mind, which is why I gave her that title, she was way ahead of all of them.
Yeah, all of us, most of us. So in terms of that's such a huge topic to look at, is when we judge people from the outside, and whether it's, gender, whether it's skin tone, whether it's intellect, perception of intellect, whether it's degrees, all of that, we put people in boxes, and it's detrimental to our own growth and especially our understanding. You have any comments on how often we do that and what we can do to not perhaps continue to do that in our society?
I try not to put moral judgments on that. I would rather that somebody reads the book and says, oh, that's me. I didn't realize that I was approaching it like that. Rather than me saying, now look at you guys, this is what you're doing. You're making moral judgments. You're deciding that all of these kids are the same. That's not for me to say. That's why I wrote the book, so people could read it and say, oh, maybe at our school we ought to get rid of our H5 classroom, and maybe we ought to do this. And a lot of schools are doing better and they're doing different things. But when they get the kids who come to the school in the wheelchairs, they tend to dump them all in the same place, regardless of what the various learning ability is. And they've learned and they've tried to expand and be better. But that kid in the wheelchair is always going to be the kid in the wheelchair. That kid in the wheelchair is not going to get up and walk and be able to go to the school dance and dance with the good-looking boy. That's not going to happen. You have to deal with the reality of the child in the wheelchair.
Yeah, it's so interesting as I hear you say this. I'm like, not Teal. Yeah. And I'm sure that's just like the mama bear in me who's like, oh, you just watch, Sharon. You just watch.
Yeah.
I think we all advocate. Go ahead.
Yeah, there are a lot of kids that don't have mama bears like you, that do get dumped in the system. Parents that don't have the ability or the knowledge to deal with a child. When I was in Romania, I think, the book has been translated into a lot of languages. So sometimes they invite me to the countries that the language has been that it has been translated into. And I went to Romania, and there was a mother there who brought her son who had cerebral palsy, and she was the most determined woman, and she had to bump this kid in his wheelchair down these steps, because of course they didn't have a ramp, but she bumped him down the steps. And he was so excited because he had finally been represented in a book. And she said, he's read it 6 times already. And his teacher didn't even know he could read, that kind of thing. Because in many countries, some of the smaller countries that don't have the updated school systems, these kids are totally ignored. I remember that little boy. I remember the kids when I went to I visited China, and the parents who said, the other parents won't even talk to me. They look at me as if I've done something wrong, as if I should be ashamed. And they shun me and my child and my family because, as if it might be catching or something. The book has helped in a lot of ways because it's given people at least confidence that their child is truly intelligent, as the mothers usually know, and that others need to learn how to open it. And it leads to advocacy for some of these kids.
Oh, and I think it also leads to advocacy for the students that have read it, because my niece said, oh my gosh, I've read that book. That's amazing. And I made my mom read it. And so you're creating a voice for these children, but then you're giving voice also to their peers to step in, to step up, to step next to and hold a hand or help understand more, look differently at their eyes, or Teal drools, and I know that people look at her differently sometimes because of that.
Yeah. Why does she have that bib on?
Yeah. And we like to call them bandanas, but yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But it is. And so it's just been really, really beautiful to have. I mean, people came out of the woodwork on Facebook and Instagram to just wanted to tell you deeply how much your book has impacted their child. I don't have a lot of 12-year-old friends on Facebook, but I mean, so many people. I mean, I had a teacher, Loretta, say, it is one of our number one books that we always provide the kids in our classroom. It's always in my classroom. And I know you're doing other things, and it's incredible. And I was like, oh, maybe it should be Out of My Soul, because it's like, oh, maybe we should get into the spiritual side of things. I was like, ooh.
I'm open to titles. I think the title will come to me as I write it.
Oh, yes.
Right now it's saved on the computer as Out of My Whatever. So I don't know.
Out of my
I don't know yet.
Yeah, well, that'll come. It'll be exciting to have it there. So I do have a couple more questions. Are you open for that? Okay. So is Mrs. V Based on anyone that you know in particular?
No, the book is fiction. The book
I know.
is fiction. And the fact that people think they know Mrs. V is obviously I did a good job. No,
Yes.
but
Yes.
everybody needs a Mrs. V. Every tired mother needs that next door neighbor that is her best friend that says, don't worry about it, I got her. And most people don't have a Mrs. V.
You're right.
So I created Mrs. V. I made her outfits be gaudy and beautiful and noisy, just like her. And oh, I love Mrs. V. And Judith Light, you know, the actress Judith
of
Light
course. Yeah.
is playing Mrs. V in the movie version of Out of My Mind.
That's perfect.
Yes, and she's just perfect at the part. She's vivacious and loud and bossy, and you will do it again. And yet, she's perfect. I got to go and watch them film part of the movie.
You did. Tell me about this.
You see this chair behind me?
Yeah. Okay, I saw that. Exactly.
The director's chair. That was the chair that was on set with my name on it. Yes. And so I got to sit on set and watch them film the movie. There's other famous people playing the other parts, but Judith Light, I've admired her for years and years. So
some of us grew up with her. I mean, boom.
Judith Light is Mrs. V. Yes.
Congratulations on the film. Is Melody played by someone with a disability?
The child does have cerebral palsy. Yes.
Good on you guys.
Well, it wasn't me. Once you say, yeah, you can make a movie, it's completely out of your hands. And, they could have filmed it in a tomato factory and I could not have complained about it.
Right.
So, no, but they were very careful with the filming and with the character and the young lady. They did a worldwide search. And they found this young lady, and she actually has cerebral palsy. She is in a wheelchair. She can speak, and she's brilliant. And, I got to know her very well. As a matter of fact, I am going to London in a couple of weeks, and I'm going to that's where she's from. And I'm supposed to have lunch with her and her mother.
Well, that'll be an honor for her, I know.
They picked the right young lady. And I had no zero zip, not one little bit of control over who they picked, what they did, how they filmed it, how they set up the scenes, nothing. I just got to show up and watch. And that they were just being nice to me for that. They didn't have to do that.
That kind of describes a lot of our lives as moms or parents or caregivers of children with special needs. Is a lot of times we don't have any control.
No.
We just don't. We like to think that we do, but Teal is in control. Teal is the one monitoring our world. She is the one leading. She is the one saying, hey, I mean, of course, I'm still the mom, but you know what I mean? Like I try to follow her intuition. And if as soon as I think I've got this figured out. Oh no, I don't.
Yeah. And Teal is how old?
6. Yeah. It's just going to get worse. No.
It gets better.
I know it gets better.
I
know. How old are your kids now? And you have grandbabies.
My kids are all grown and I've got grandbabies. Yes.
What inspires you outside of writing? I think it's really important to look at who you are beyond just being a writer. What inspires you?
It's hard to say. I mean, I'm inspired by children. I'm inspired by other writers. I'm an avid reader. I'm inspired by books and stories. I'm inspired by people I meet, by strangers I meet, by people like you who know how to do a cool background so it looks like you're at the ocean. I've got to learn how to do that.
I'll teach you how to do that. Before we hang up, I'll teach you how to do that. It's easy.
And what I'm saying is we've got, all of us are blessed in different kinds of ways. And my blessing came with teaching and then with writing because I was a writing teacher. Now, not all writing teachers grow up to be writers, but some do. And that was just my path. And you have to figure out what your path is. And what I tell children when they talk, they says, well, how do you know that? I said, find out what you're good at and do that. Find out what makes you happy. Find out what's easy for you. And I go back to the cooking because people understand that. you're good at cooking, then be a cook. If that's what gives you joy, then do that. I'm looking at your background with the ocean. If the ocean makes you happy, then do that. Let that be your joy. So you have to find what you're good at. I am not a swimmer. The ocean does not give me joy. I like looking at it, and I like being about as distant as you are on that screen from the ocean. That is not where my strength is. That's not my joy. Writing and sitting here in my office with my dog is what gives me joy.
Yeah.
So you have to find what you're good at and find what makes you happy. And that's all life is. Find out what makes you happy, find out what you're good at, and do that. And that's all we can do.
It doesn't have to be more complicated than that, but there
Yeah.
is a lot of fear around, oh gosh, what, who says that'll work? And it's like, well, jump,
Yes.
the quote, jump and the net will appear by, I think it's Nietzsche, right? I mean, it's like, there you go. Jump.
Yeah.
I did a shamanic journey the other day, and we're going to go up and meet the karmic lords. And I didn't meet the karmic lords. There wasn't anyone there for me. But all of a sudden I said, well, what am I supposed to do next? I was in the upper world, and I was like, what am I supposed to do next? And this voice said, jump.
Ooh.
And I was on the top of a tree, because I don't know if you've ever done a shamanic journey, but there's usually, if you're going to go up into the upper world, there's usually something there to either climb, or a rope to hold, or a ladder to climb, or something. And I had climbed my tree, and then I just stood there looking out, and the voice said, jump. And
Ooh.
and I jumped, and I turned into a bird.
Wow. Now that's meaningful. That's deep.
But I think just jump sometimes. Just jump into your child's life. Jump into it and see where it leads you. See where your child leads you. See where the book leads you. See where your melody leads you. See where possibilities. Jump. Just jump. I mean, I've known forever that I was supposed to jump into this, and it took me a really long time to kind of just do what you just said. And thank goodness you did what you practice what you preach. Like, thank goodness you jumped from teaching into writing, because you have changed the world for so many people.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. All I did was use the gift that I had. That, I think, is the biggest thing that I can tell people, is find out what your gift is and use that. And don't, I'm not saying don't strive for other things, but if something is given to you, then use that. Like, I have a cousin who's gifted as a cook. Use that.
Yeah.
And, I said, my goodness, this is like 5-star meal. You could work. Oh, I don't want to. Use your gift.
Right.
Use whatever is given to you, because life is short. So use your gifts and share it with other people. There we go.
The other thing I like to say, Sharon, life is really long. And if you're miserable in it, it is short. But at the same time, it's like, well, if it's long, then you better be doing something you love. Right.
Yeah.
So you write on your website, I am a creator, a visionary, a poet. I approach the world with the eyes of an artist, the ears of a musician, and the soul of a writer. I see rainbows where others see only rain, and possibilities when others see only problems. I just love that. And it continues. I encourage everyone to go to SharonDraper.com, because it's a really beautiful. I don't know if, it's just really beautiful. You are very articulate with your words, with a lot of emotion.
Thank you.
And I'm glad you see rainbows where other people see rain, because you've done a really beautiful job of enhancing our world.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And I do love rainbows.
Mm-hmm.
The day I moved into my new house, a giant rainbow appeared in the sky. I mean, it was like welcome. It's like, wow. So.
Uh-huh. Do you believe in signs like that? Do you get them lots?
I was just thankful that particular sign appeared at that particular time.
And you got to have your eyes open.
If you get too deep in, I believe in signs, that's not the purpose. The purpose is to appreciate the sign when it appears.
Yeah, exactly. And at least be aware that it appears,
Yeah.
first of all, and then give
Yeah.
thanks and
Yeah.
appreciation for it.
Exactly.
Nice. Well, we very much look forward to the Out of Whatever book that's
Yes.
coming out. Super exciting. And when is the movie coming?
I do not know because they haven't told me, but I know they have finished the filming. Now that does not mean the movie is finished because then it goes to secondary thing and somebody has to put a soundtrack onto it, somebody has to dub in this and they have to so I don't know. They haven't told me. It will be next year sometime. I'm thinking spring, but I do not know. And I think they're going to start filming Out of My Heart as well, because the young lady who plays the part is getting older. If you wait 5 years, she'll be 18, and that won't work. So they have to film it while she still looks the same as she does now. She's 11. Next year, she'll look 12. In 2 years, she'll be too old. So they're going to film the second one. And if I ever finish writing the third one, I guess they'll film that. I don't know. Have much
Nope.
control over that. I'm the creator. I put it out there and then people say, hey, we want to do this. And I don't write so that they could make a movie because that's the wrong reason to write. I write so that I can share the story with the world. And if somebody wants to make a movie out of it, oh, that's really cool. But I try, and people are saying, you don't get excited about that. It's like, no, it's a gift. It's a blessing. And no, I'm not going to get excited about things that I don't have any control over. It's like, no, just I'm thankful.
Gratitude. It's a good place to be.
Yeah.
And you have a lot to be grateful for. So that's wonderful.
I really, really do.
Yeah.
I'm very, very blessed. Yes.
Yeah. Very fun. Well, I look forward to hearing what Melody has to say in her third book with you. It'll be.
Well, if you have an idea for a title, throw them at me.
Hey, listeners, I think she's open. Go to her website because there's a contact page there, and I bet go ahead.
You don't want it to be called Out of My Armpit, so give me
no.
Esoteric and lovely.
I don't want Out of My Armpit.
I would not do that to you. I would not do that to you.
Okay, good.
Editor would never let that happen. My editor is, oh my goodness, she's worse than I ever was as a teacher.
Oh,
very hard on me.
Well, you probably need that. And you like that. There's a little part of you that likes that.
We're going to have to redo chapter 14. It's just not working. And we're going to have to move chapter 2 all the way to chapter 72 because you see how that, it's like, yeah, you're right. So,
sounds like she's earning her keep.
Yes, she's very good.
I bet you were a pretty stern teacher with a lot of love, but I bet people didn't really mess with your rules. Yes. I bet.
Yeah, they were afraid of me, but then they were glad that they were there. Because my last name is Draper, I had something that they had to do at the end of the year called the Draper paper. And I had signs up in my room that said, beware, that you must do the Draper paper at the end of the semester. And kids came to me in tears, just terrified. Oh, I have to do that Draper paper. And it was nothing but a research paper. I taught them research skills, but it is a psych thing, and I had their attention and they learned something. By the time they got to college, term papers were a breeze because I had taught them the skills.
Good on you.
Yeah.
You got recognized for your Draper paper as well.
Yeah.
There are so many accolades on your website. Like it's just amazing how much you have done. These 2 little books are just the little baby parts of it. Like you really have done so much more. So I encourage people to go and look at your website and learn and be a part of your community, and the resources and all sorts of things that you have on there are just wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
So I have one final question for you. Yes. And that is, how would you describe in one word a child with special needs?
A wonderful possibility.
Agreed.
Yes.
Thank you so very much for being our guest today. You've profoundly impacted us in your words and with your writing. So thank you so much.
Thank you. This was delightful. I enjoyed it.
Have a good day.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you found 1 or 2 meaningful nuggets of information to make your day better. If you think there's value in what we do, please take a moment to tell another friend, family member, or caregiver. We'd love to hear from you at forourspecialkids@gmail.com. You can send in a question, a comment, a topic that you'd like to learn more about, or if you'd like us to highlight a certain person, please send that information to us. It makes our show so much better and so much more valuable for you. Our Facebook and Instagram handle is For Our Special Kids. And finally, remember to witness the wonder and the wisdom within yourself and others. Until next time.